Welcome to This Explainer. Let's jump right in because today we're exploring a massive shift happening in the business world right now. We're looking at how inclusion and diversity have completely transitioned from being these peripheral corporate HR initiatives to becoming absolutely essential, highly prized components of modern business strategy and executive presence. For the longest time, being a leader meant outward conformity, right? You had to fit into a very specific, predefined box. But today, as we'll see mapped out in our sources, that is shifting toward a deep, unmasked internal authority.
Okay, let's kick things off by orienting ourselves around one core concept: alignment over assimilation. You see, the research we're looking at today makes a really compelling case that true executive presence in the modern era is fundamentally about alignment and authentic human connection. It's definitely not about pledging allegiance to a rigid ideology or mimicking these outdated corporate molds that, frankly, were never designed for everyone in the first place.
Now, to truly appreciate this shift, we kind of have to look back at the historical challenge. For decades, the standard for what was considered professional behavior, speech, and attire was incredibly narrow, and it was largely shaped by traditional white male norms. This took a systemic and, frankly, exhausting toll on professionals of color. Our sources refer to this as bleached-out professionalism. Basically, to be seen as leadership material, many people felt forced to suppress or just completely sacrifice vital aspects of their cultural identities. And the psychological cost of doing that day in and day out is heavy. It directly leads to deep feelings of resentment and total workplace disengagement.
And the data on this is honestly pretty staggering. Historically, the feedback loops for minority leaders were either completely absent, hopelessly vague, or just totally contradictory. According to the Center for Talent Innovation, African-American professionals were 97% more likely than their Caucasian counterparts to agree that executive presence at their firm was based squarely on traditional white male standards. 97%! That is a massive discrepancy.
Our source material points out the profound disconnect this created. Because managers often hesitated to give actionable feedback, maybe out of fear of appearing racially insensitive, executive presence just became this inscrutable set of rules. Minority leaders were constantly being judged by these invisible rules, yet they couldn't interpret or embody them without paying a huge, painful cost to their own authenticity.
But here is where it gets exciting, because we are literally watching a massive paradigm shift play out. On the one hand, you've got the old rules, this monolithic model focused entirely on a rigid appearance and traditional pedigree, but on the flip side, we are seeing a clear, undeniable pivot toward a modern, inclusive approach rooted in discernment, authenticity, and untraditional talent. Women and people of color no longer have to contort themselves to fit into a mold that wasn't fashioned for them.
And the data completely backs up this shift. When you compare surveys of business leaders from 2012 to 2022, inclusiveness has absolutely skyrocketed. By 2022, inclusiveness shot right onto the list of top gravitas traits, prized by 68% of respondents as a vital, non-negotiable component of modern leadership. The old ideal has officially eroded, and leaders today absolutely must stretch themselves in new ways to make sure their teams actually feel seen, heard, and valued.
So, how do modern executives actually put this into practice? How do they match today's market? Well, it's all about choosing responsibility over reactivity. Specifically, there are 4 key practices to achieve this: hiring and utilizing diverse talent, looking beyond the traditional pedigree, delivering what researchers call informed empathy, and volunteering a unique value add. Let's break down how these actually look in the real world.
Let's look at the tech company Dyson, for instance. Their chief people officer, Laura Garza, hit the nail on the head when she said that global and diverse talent generates disruptive innovation. Half the members of Dyson's executive leadership team are women, and 60% grew up outside of Britain. Because they have this rich, multi-ethnic perspective, they can successfully exercise discernment to tailor products to deeply different cultural habits across the globe. For example, they realized that women in China and Japan typically wash the hair at night, looking for serenity, while British and American women tend to wash in the morning, looking for speed. So their supersonic hairdryer was specifically designed using diverse perspectives to successfully serve both of those incredibly different global markets. That is a real game changer.
Cultivating that kind of diversity also means rethinking our idea of qualifications. Former IBM CEO Ginny Rometty gave us a total masterclass in looking beyond the pedigree. She actively championed the hiring of new-collar workers. These were individuals from less advantaged backgrounds who might have lacked those elite traditional 4-year degrees, but they showed immense potential in STEM fields. By actively empowering untraditional talent, she secured an incredibly loyal workforce that helped IBM smoothly navigate some massive technological transitions.
Moving on to our next key concept, informed empathy,
which is all about responsibility over reactivity.
You know, showing genuine respect in leadership requires a whole lot more than just being polite or treating people nicely. It requires actively acquiring knowledge to understand lived experiences that are totally different from your own. Informed empathy goes way beyond basic dignity or just surface-level compassion. It means intentionally consulting experts, really digging down into the research, and actively bringing diverse perspectives onto your team. By aligning with the lived experiences of others, leaders gain invaluable insights that literally strengthen the business.
As researcher Gautam Mukunda observes in our text, today's global workforce demands leaders who demonstrate a true lived understanding of their team's predicament. Let's be real, people don't just want a boss who intellectually grasps the situation on paper. They want a leader who feels their pain, understands their concerns, and shares their aspirations. Emotional intelligence and empathy aren't just soft skills anymore. They are extraordinarily powerful keys to this new era of leadership. And here's where it becomes a massive business advantage. When leaders actually feel empowered to bring their authentic selves to work, they uncover totally new value. The source material shares a great story about an openly gay executive at Merrill Lynch. By leveraging his own unique background, he understood the LGBTQ+ community's highly specific financial needs, like a much higher interest in targeted philanthropy rather than your traditional college tuition savings accounts. He volunteered this value add and built a highly specialized wealth management team that ended up managing over $2 billion in assets.
Right now, I just want you to take a moment to reflect on that. Think about what it actually means to drop that exhausting effort of conforming to an outdated corporate mold. Just sit for a second with the sheer weight of finally claiming your own unmasked internal authority.
So ask yourself, do you know what you're feeling right now? And do you know whose feelings those actually are? Self-awareness is absolutely the bedrock of executive presence today. Are you interpreting feelings just as a passing, momentary state, or are you thinking deeply about what they tell you concerning the very people you're responsible for leading?
If you want a perfect example of what this looks like in the real world, look no further than Thasunda Brown-Duckett. She is a prominent executive who absolutely refuses to hide her background or her values. Whether she's gracefully addressing microaggressions or speaking openly to her team about race, she holds the space for everyone's authentic presence. She encapsulates the whole shebang perfectly, saying, "I just bring the best version of Thasunda, all of me, to the table because I want everyone else to do the same." I mean, that right there, that is unbleached, powerful leadership.
So I'm going to leave you with this final thought as we wrap up. The new rules of executive presence aren't just coming, they're already here. And they demand authenticity, they demand informed empathy, and they demand deep inclusiveness. So, how will you bring this alignment into your own daily practice and community dialogue today? How will you stop assimilating and start aligning? Thank you so much for exploring these vital insights with me in this explainer. I really hope it sparks a desire to deepen your own authentic leadership presence.